Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 70. He's Dave Bryan, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being with us this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Oh, Canada. now Yinzers will be able to blame Canada, right? Kind of a South Park reference there. But yeah, doing fine. It's great to be alive on this Friday morning right now and heading into championship weekend.
Well, hey, you said it, so let's just dive right into the news. Dave, the Steelers, right after we did the podcast on Wednesday, as these things always seem to go, Steelers announced they had hired, and I know you mentioned it, but they made it official, hired quarterback coach Matt Canada, who's bounced around a lot of places, including with Pitt in 2016 as their offensive coordinator, been with LSU, and then most recently Maryland in 2018, was out of a job in 2019. Matt Canada, the quarterback coach, what is your reaction?
I'd like to hire on the surface. I really do, and I don't think he wasn't on your short list of names, was he?
No, I missed him just because he was out of the league last year. But every time you see the name pop up, you go, okay, that does make a lot of sense.
Right. This is a guy that's bounced around, obviously, quite a deal in the college ranks. I think he started off as a GA at Indiana University many moons ago. Bounced. I mean, since then it's been Butler, Northern Illinois, back to Indiana, Wisconsin, North Carolina State, Pitt for 1 year. I think a lot of people listening to this show probably remember the one season that he was the offensive coordinator there in Pitt in 2016, and of course at LSU in 2017. Mostly his work offensive coordinator / quarterbacks throughout his entire coaching career. So there is that. Kind of one of the younger, innovative mind, if you will. And look, I mean, the fact that he worked at Pitt while James Conner was there, and he had his final very productive season there at Pitt, and was also at North Carolina State there when Jalen Samuels had a couple of nice years. And of course, Eddie Faulkner came out of that North Carolina State program as well too. So with him being around Pitt in 2016, Tomlin, obviously, and everybody on staff had a good idea. Probably had a somewhat of a relationship with Matt Canada, a guy that seems to be kind of maybe trying to reestablish himself now, and maybe potentially become a offensive coordinator in the NFL down the line. So I on the surface, I don't see there as being much, if anything, not to like about Matt Canada being the Steelers' new quarterbacks coach.
I agree, and he's regarded as a bright offensive mind. Not only was he just at Pitt, they had a great year that year for the Panthers with him calling the shots. Didn't have quite that success at LSU, and then I think everyone knows the situation in Maryland with him taking over for Coach Durkin, and that terrible, tragic situation, and then again not coaching last year. But yeah, I mean, regarded as a bright guy. I think it was just important for them to get a quarterback coach in general. I wrote in my article where I kind of broke down what to expect and what Canada brings to the table, that it really was a disservice to the investment and development in a guy like Mason Rudolph. When you draft him in the third round, you trade up for him, you view him as your franchise guy. You don't have a dedicated coach for him. And I think obviously had Ben stayed healthy, that wouldn't have been as much of an issue. But without him and trying to scramble and prepare these guys, you kind of felt like you were exposed by not having that kind of dedicated coach. And so I think you kind of really realized the error of their ways this year by not having one. So I think it's just the best thing for a young guy like Mason Rudolph to work with. Canada always professes his systems are easy to learn. His goal is to make the players learn quickly, not learn 2 years from now. I think that'll help young guys like Doc and potentially Paxton Lynch and, of course, Mason Rudolph.
Absolutely, and you've already written a kind of an outline of what what he is as an offensive mind, and obviously it was easy for me to kind of recollect just from his time, his one season at Pitt. and then obviously more recently at LSU. And look, I mean, there was no hiding it either, because it was the kind of thing that would get talked about during broadcast as well too, and about the way he likes to use various motions, pre-snap motions, as window dressing, if you will. And look, I mean, he's run a lot of spread offense, right? So kind of an innovative mind when it comes to that. A lot of use of pre-snap motion, and a little bit of play action in there as well too. So a few things that we're not used to seeing a lot of with the Steelers. You don't know how much of a say he's going to have, right, with the offense moving forward. But you would hope that we'd start seeing almost instantly a few of his fingerprints being put on it.
Yeah, you would hope there'd be an influence. I know the team made a passing reference as him to help out the offense in general, as opposed to being just quarterback coach. It's hard to say exactly how much those things are going to go. Obviously, Fichtner and Ben are still going to be joined at the hip and working closely together, but ideally you would like some of those things incorporated into this offense. And I don't think the fact that those are Canada's strong suits is a coincidence. This team did not use enough motion last year. I couldn't find exactly where they ranked. I know it was outside the top 10 in pre-snap motion. It was probably closer to bottom third. And I believe they were dead last in play action for 2 years running in a league where play action is becoming popular. And some of the best teams in football are using play action in a really heavy amount and using pre-snap motion a lot. Baltimore, San Francisco, teams that really rely on that, and teams that obviously are still or have been very successful offenses. So two elements that this team needs to add, and two things I think Canada does well.
And, Ben, over the years, it's always been one of those things that's kind of a head scratcher. I know with me and you, and look, I mean, Matthew charts it as well, too, and has for several years on top of it. And you go to PFF, and the stats really jump out. And talking about Ben and play action, he's been great with it over the years. But realistically, it kind of feels like the last time we saw Ben in play action was the pass to Grimble against the against the Broncos. Now, obviously, it's been a little bit since then, but I mean that's how few and far between when you can start remembering instances. I think such as that. Ben previously has been excellent when it comes to play action. So we saw even though he was out of out of the gun quite a bit most of the time in college as well too. Mason Rudolph's run quite a bit of that. Play action, especially in RPO stuff and stuff along those lines there. So I got a big question for you here. It's an important one. Will we see Matt Canada's lips move while he calls the plays?
This year?
Yeah.
Or at any point?
At any point.
I think there's potential. I mean, down the line, obviously Canada's got an offensive coordinator background. I mean, I could definitely see that. It's not going to happen this year. Fichtner's going to be the guy, but you do wonder, let's say, post Ben. I mean, as long as Ben is here, I think Fichtner's going to be the guy. Although, if you were to ever make a change hypothetically with Ben, an in-house move is going to be the only way to go, the way they did from Haley to Rainey Fichtner. But in a post Ben world, potentially, if things work out well and Canada's still on staff, yeah. I mean, I think that's within the realm of possibility.
Well, I say that tongue-in-cheek, obviously, but it really kind of has a feel of a, kind of like Terrell Austin, guy kind of in the background there, and you kind of wonder how much of a say the person will have moving forward here. Look, I mean, he's coming in off the street right now. We don't expect him to have a huge amount of influence in the offense, albeit we both would like to see some of those elements in there. The pre-snap motion and some play action in there, and those kind of elements kind of added on top of some things that they already do there. Obviously, Ben's going to probably have a large say in the overall makeup of this offense again moving forward here. But the good thing too that I take away from this is he knows those running backs, a couple of those running backs there as well. But who knows? Maybe he'll be the run game or pass game coordinator, if you will. Add some elements to that. Maybe take. We don't know how much Sean Surratt does as far as his role in run coordinator. But look, make no mistake about it, this team has to run not necessarily more, and I'm going to continue to say that, not necessarily more, but they have to run better and more consistent this upcoming season here. And definitely when you look back at some of the offenses that Matt Canada has been a part of, they've been able to do that.
Correct. My understanding has been that the offensive line coach Munchak and then Surratt have been the de facto run game coordinator, and so I don't know if Canada's going to have an exact role in that this year, but I am just curious to find out if we see any sort of growing influence or any influence beyond coaching just the quarterbacks. But even just in a vacuum and just the quarterbacks, to have that dedicated coach, to have a really bright mind who's coached the college game and can work with these young guys, I think is really, really valuable.
Absolutely, especially with his experience going way back into 92, I think, is when he kind of broke in as a GA there in Indiana, and then almost immediately went right into coaching quarterbacks and all like that. And he's worked with receivers along the way and running backs, and also this is an offensive mind that should have a good idea of what he's looking at, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. And boy, those obviously Ben can be reminded about some mechanics here and there along the way, especially being away from the game for technically a full season there. And then, younger guys like Mason and obviously Devin Hodges and, even a guy who hasn't played very much since being drafted in Paxton Lynch. So, once again, going back to what we said at the top of the show, there's not a lot to poke holes in here when it comes to Canada being the new quarterback coach.
And I thought it was interesting because it really feels like this was a mandate from Art Rooney, who said told Mike Tomlin, you have to get a quarterback coach, you have to get somebody to help in that room. And it's a really good segue into the other big story since we last talked on the podcast on Wednesday, Dave, was Art Rooney II. The team owner had an extensive interview, as he always does after the offseason, kind of a post-year recap and review. And that was one of the things that he said where, he basically told Mike Tomlin, he didn't pick Canada, but he said, go find somebody who can help us. Go find a quarterback coach.
Yeah, and not overly surprised. Mike Tomlin was asked about that at the end of the year too, and I don't know if by then he had already had a sit down with Art Rooney by that time, but he definitely left the door open at that point, that he was open to going that route. And look, we can point to Randy being a former quarterbacks coach, and of course having Matt Sims, an offensive assistant in there. It just wasn't enough, especially when you have a second-year guy in Mason Rudolph, and then obviously a guy that right out of college in Devin Hodges get thrown into the fire there. And boy, you start going back through that tape from last year on both those guys. A lot of flaws mechanic-wise. Get those things tightened up with the experience that they have this past season. Get that stuff tightened up this off season, and maybe have a little bit more to work with there.
Yeah, again, I think there's no really downside to this hiring, and I think it's good. And again, we'll just have to see if there's any sort of influence beyond just coaching the quarterback position for Matt Canada. To go back to Rooney, speaking of quarterbacks, I guess let's stick there because Rooney was asked about the backup quarterback situation. A lot of fans in my timeline, I'm sure yours as well, Dave, have clamored to sign a veteran backup quarterback like Teddy Bridgewater or Marcus Mariota. Well, we said that was unlikely to happen. Rooney echoed that, saying they have no plans of exploring the veteran backup quarterback market. And I think it's kind of what I said and what you said a couple weeks ago, that I think going into training camp, expect basically the same quarterbacks you have now with Ben, Duck, Mason, and Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, and it has been exactly what you and I have said since the season ended, and it wasn't hard to guess and go that way either, because A, they don't have the money, or don't seemingly have the money to go with more than a minimum guy. And when you look at the minimum guys that figure to be out there, not very appealing, if you will. And look, they got a full quarterback room now. Now they just got to pick the best three to come out of that. Moving forward here, you obviously think there's a decent chance that maybe Devin Hodges will be the number 3 next year. I think there's a decent chance that maybe Paxton Lynch will be that guy. Either way, it's likely to be one of those two guys. And then on top of it, and pretty much since the season ended, Mike Tomlin said Mason Rudolph's the backup quarterback. Well, the 8 times that Art Rooney's been asked about Mason Rudolph in the last 3 days, he said the same thing. So I don't know what different ways they think they're going to trip up Art Rooney II by asking him the same question with maybe a different adjective or verb in there. But this franchise right now doesn't show any signs whatsoever or qualms of not thinking that Mason can't be the backup, and maybe maybe potentially the guy to succeed Ben down the line. Now they haven't said that in so many words, but I think in one of the interviews, Art Rooney said moving forward into future years and all, so kind of hinted that possibly being the case. But here's what we know right now is that in 2020, barring something totally unforeseen, Mason Rudolph's going to back up Ben Roethlisberger, and really now the only question is who's going to be the number 3 quarterback, and we don't expect it to be a veteran outside the organization.
And that was what the team said when they drafted Rudolph, that they hoped that he would be the heir to Ben. And obviously 2019 may have changed those plans or maybe kind of hindered those chances, but the team's still confident in him to be the backup, and so it's not a surprise to hear them say they still have confidence in Mason being the long-term guy, and they're still going to stay on course with their plan. To read the quote specifically of what Rooney said, I'll pick it up halfway through his sentence because he was talking about Ben initially. We'll get to him in a second, but Rooney said, quote, "And Mason being Ben's backup, I don't think at this point we really plan to explore bringing in another veteran backup quarterback. And again, with the confidence they have in Rudolph, earned or not, that's debatable, but that's the reality of the situation. And as you said, just a lack of cap space for how expensive these veteran backup quarterbacks can be. No surprise that this is the decision that they are making."
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if you want a moderately experienced guy with pedigree, you got one right there in Paxton Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
How many people in your timeline anyway were clamoring for him to play in the finale against the Ravens?
A lot of them.
Boy, that duck merchandise went on clearance real quick, right?
Yeah.
I think I saw where you get some shirts for like $1. Boy, they flew the coop on that, real quick. As far as that goes, no. But in all seriousness, here, I didn't see this going any other way than the way kind of Art Rooney laid this out the last several days here. I'm not shocked one bit, and nor was I shocked about the his thoughts on Ben Roethlisberger saying, look, as far as they know right now, everything's on course with him, and they'll learn a little bit more, I think he said, over the next couple of weeks. And obviously Mike Tomlin has already put it out there that, the 1st of February or near the 1st of February, Ben's got a very important checkup, and we would expect things to probably start ramping up in the month of February alone because, they need to have a good gauge of where Ben is prior to the start of the new league year in March. But at no point did I ever sense panic or uncertainty when it came to things that Art Rooney II had to say about the quarterback position in whole, and that includes the future of Ben Roethlisberger.
And here's what Rooney said exactly on Ben. Quote, "Everything we hear so far is positive. He is still in the early stages of rehab. That's going to start to ramp up soon. We're anxious to see his progress." So not a whole lot there, but again, everything about Ben so far has been positive. As you said, he's got his February 1st, right around that date, not exactly on that date, checkup, and that'll be, quote, significant, according to Mike Tomlin at his season-ending press conference. So again, everything positive so far, but I think this February checkup's going to tell us a whole lot more.
Yeah, I do as well right now. Look, I mean, as we've said all along, there's been no reason for us to think otherwise. And until there is, I mean, you can speculate all this, his age and coming back from this ligament surgery in his elbow, blah. I mean, you can speculate till the cows come home, but there's no reason for us to think that he won't be the same old Ben, and maybe even a tad. Maybe have a little bit more arm strength. I don't know. We don't know how long that elbow maybe has been hurting him. Obviously he's I think he's complained of a little bit of pain of that in the past and all like that. But look, they're not going to overdo him when they get him back anyway. He's going to have that typical day, third day off in training camp kind of thing, and they're not going to push him when he does start going through the rehab here. But until we get past this next significant date, whenever that is, which is somewhere we think in the early portion of February, we just have to go with what's out there.
On a personal, partially selfish level, I would love to know, though, exactly what Ben's injury was, because the one kind of weird thing is we never found out exactly what that injury was. And there's a lot of speculation out there. Some people say they seem to proclaim, I love Pat McAfee, but he keeps saying that Ben had Tommy John, and I don't believe that's accurate. At least we don't know that he had Tommy John. I think it was some sort of muscle or ligament or something that wasn't exactly Tommy John. So I just wish we knew definitively what the nature of the injury was to be able to evaluate the recovery a little bit clearer.
Yeah, and that's above my pay grade. I mean, obviously, if we knew a little bit, I think Dr. Mel's tried to kind of fish a little bit on Twitter with but nobody seems to know. So, unless somebody comes out and says this is exactly the kind of surgery that he had, and who knows, once Ben starts getting in front of the media again, maybe he'll let everybody know. But really, we don't know exactly the kind. We don't think it was Tommy John surgery,
Right.
According to, I think, what else is out there right now. But other than that, we don't really know. And it's kind of hard to speculate off what you don't even know. And that even comes with people in the field, such as Dr. Mel. I mean, unless she gets a little bit more definitive there, it's kind of hard for her to even ask around and then speculate from there.
Right, because the reason why I say that more to the point is so you could kind of have a case study. Are there players who have had this type of injury before? Even if it's a baseball player, how do players in their late 30s recover from these type of elbow surgeries? And have you had players with successful careers post surgery? And again, even if it's a baseball player, maybe it's a quarterback along the way. And we just talked to Charlie Batch, and he talked about how his broken collarbone was used as a case study for Aaron Rodgers, and they were able to kind of map things out better that way. And I'm sure the team isn't doing those steps right now, but again, personally, I would love to know that so we could better speak to his ability to come back. But as you said, everything so far seems positive.
So far, so good.
So, and fingers crossed for that. And again, our next update on Ben should come. I think we will hear something from Ben with the team about that checkup. It'll be vague. It'll probably be positive, but I'll take both of those things. And I know Ben's goal was to start throwing for OTAs, and that's going to be only a couple months away. So hopefully we're only a couple months away to seeing number 7 start throwing again.
Absolutely.
Sticking with the offense, Rooney talked about the run game. I do appreciate how Matthew Marksey titled this article, Rooney Issues Annual. It would be nice if we could run the ball better. Mission statement, and that's what Rooney did. Saying, quote, "We've talked about it before. I would like to see us be a team that can be more consistent running the football. I think that's the part of the game." An obvious statement, especially in here we did not have Ben. The lack of run game was exposed, and as you've talked about it in this episode also, Dave, it's not about running the football more, it's about running it more efficiently. And that's something this team struggled with mightily in 2019. And
the last couple of years they have as well too. Man, how nice would it be to see early in a game, and even going back to last year, Le'Veon was in a uniform, starting games with a 1 yard gain or a loss of a yard. This team just it's been forever since they've come out to shoot, being able to run the football successfully. And boy, if you're able to come out and run the ball successfully, however many times you run it, it sure seems to help, and across the NFL as well too. I mean, look, and Rooney's watching the playoffs, and he's watching what's going on with specifically with a team like the Titans. Heck, Tannehill's yet to throw for more than 80-something yards in a game in the 2 playoff games. And I imagine that's probably going – I don't know how well the plan's going to work out, but I imagine that's going to be the plan this week against the Chiefs as well, too. And make no mistake about it, it's not like Derrick Henry's facing 6-man boxes, right? I mean, this is a guy that's faced, consistently 8- and 9-man boxes here, guys near within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage there, and they're still able to get the job done there. So using the excuse of men in the box just doesn't cut it. Just doesn't cut it there. They need to be better up front when it comes to that. Their tight ends need to be better in that. The whole aspect, the running backs need to be better. And look, it doesn't look as though there are going to be any really other changes on the staff, at least as far as we can tell. Now, Rooney did say, they'd like to get, maybe, I guess, potentially, this, that, and the other could probably happen between now and them going to Mobile for the Senior Bowl. But man, as we mentioned on that last show, you would expect a lot of that to be tied up here, in the next few days here with the Senior Bowl now, a week away here. So they do have to get better running the football. Now, does a return of Roosevelt Nix, is that going to help that? Possibly, yeah. But it's going to take a little bit of more than that, because there's going to be instances along the way too where you have to be able to run out of just flat 12 personnel, out of 13 personnel, and out of 11 personnel, and they just have not been able to do that. So yeah, and this does almost seem like an annual thing with Rooney. Well, we got to get back to running the football successfully. Well, yeah, he's going to say that, because he's old school like that, and yeah, running the football consistently does help. But all that said, I don't expect this to be 2004 Steelers come next season.
No, of course not. Still, Ben is going to be the straw that stirs the drink. But Rooney's saying that because the numbers say this run game has not been good enough. I'll give you the Steelers ranking in terms of the yards per carry in the run game the last 3 years. They've been 25th, 24th, and 30th. 30th this past year, 25th in 2017, 24th in 2018. So that was obviously worse this year, but the last even 2 years with Munchak. I know everyone says it's just because of Surratt. And listen, I've been critical of Surratt this year. I was overall very disappointed with how the season ended with him in that offensive line group. But even with Munchak, it was never a great, efficient type of run game. And it was weird this year because there was a stretch where they ran the ball effectively. Like, they could run the ball this year in moments, but they just couldn't do it consistently enough. I know injuries had a factor in that, but that won't be an excuse for this team.
Their best stretch at being successful running the football were the 3 games that James Conner.
All right, that's what I'm. Yeah, 3 games, 120 plus yards.
Yeah, when they had Benny Snell, Kareth White, and Jalen Samuels all in there. I think from the game 12, 13, and 14 weeks. Right in there was when we actually saw a little bit of signs of them having some good success rates there. I still kind of wonder how things would have gone if they would have let Benny Snell be the guy. But then you have, you think you get James Conner back for a game and he goes 9 plays. There really just was no rhythm. Now, I'm not a believer that you have to have just one back in there all the time, because obviously we've seen a team like San Francisco, right, be able to plug in 3 different guys and have good success rates in there. Now, the whole makeup on the offense and their ability to play a lot of small ball, if you will, West Coast kind of offense, if you will, when it comes to the passing game, obviously helps all that out there. And maybe some of these motions will help. If they get some of that stuff implemented in here, will maybe help kind of that stuff out there too. I think that they've got, on the surface, at least for another year or two, I think they've got the backs in place. I just think that maybe change on the offensive line there, maybe change at tight end, maybe, although we don't see a lot of that maybe shaping up when you look at this draft so far. But whatever they got to do, I'm tired of seeing the extra linemen in there all the time. They're just not successful when running kind of out of 12 or 13 personnel with an extra lineman in there. Obviously it takes away from your passing game a little bit, kind of that threat, if you will. But yeah, I mean, you talk about yards per carry, and I hate using yards per carry, but I mean, the downward trend on that stat obviously matches the successful run rate that I put up on a Twitter machine about 2 or 3 weeks ago. That we've seen a decline, and not just gradual. We're talking about 3, 4, 5% at a time here drop when it comes to run success in the run games, and that's must start going the other way.
Do you know where they ranked in successful run rate the prior 2 years, 2017, 2018?
Because I'm using kind of that new system that football Chase Stewart had put out there. I haven't looked at it that way. It's just a matter of getting a spreadsheet set up and running it through all that. But look, I mean, I where were they? 42. I even forget what the rate was. Now I'll pull that up here in a minute here, but it was down towards the bottom of the league. I can assure you at that.
Okay, so it was similar to the yards per carry even before Surratt took over, that they still weren't successful enough, even with Munchak in 17 and 18.
Let's see if I can find successful run rates here.
Because I know they were obviously terrible in 2019, but I do want to say the run game it might have been slightly better, also healthier, but had its issues even with Munchak as the O-line coach. And this team is built to pass protection.
Look, it did have the downturn there the year before Surratt took over.
Okay, so 2018 there was a downturn.
Right. I mean, here's run rates for the. Let's see. This is successful run rates by Steelers running backs and running backs alone. For 2018, it was 49.6%. Okay.
Where does that rank though, league wide?
I'd have to compile it. I mean, it's not easy.
There's no one. Chase Stewart doesn't have a list of.
I don't think for teams running backs and running backs alone.
Okay, because that's the number that I'd be most interested in. Because
right.
It's hard to know if a 49% is at top 10, is at bottom 10.
Well, look, I mean, if you look in past, just with older kind of what they were used for criteria on run success, the closer you get to 50, the better. Okay. I mean, obviously, if you have one back that's 50 or 51%, that's going to be phenomenal when it comes to this stat. Now, the successful run rates for Steelers running backs this past season, was 44.1%. So you had a 5.5% drop off in that alone, and on first down alone by Steelers running backs in 2019. 41.6% successful run rate. Okay.
Yeah,
and that's being a little bit more lenient than I've been in the past because, like I said, Chase Stewart, he likes to use here's a criteria he likes to use. Any run that goes for 6 yards or more is a successful run. And that makes sense, right? Should you penalize a back for gaining 6 yards on 3rd and 12?
I guess there's a debate, but I understand what he's getting at.
All right, and that's kind of his whole kind of theory here. If it's 3rd and 25 and a running back runs for 24 yards, you're not going to hate on a running back. In that situation. So he's got kind of 6 yards because of, the math and all the associated that goes along with kind of the studies that put into this. 6 yards or longer on any run is a successful run.
So if you gain 6 yards on 3rd and 25, it's a successful run?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's it's just you can read his kind of the stuff and his reasoning behind that over at Football Perspective, and I think this goes back to the end of last year when he kind of changed the formula up on that. But all right, so 6 yards or better on any run is a successful run. Well, anyway, you're splitting hairs there anyway, because how many times do you see a running back getting that situation anyway? But I'm just trying to tell you what the criteria here is. 40% on first down. Outside of that 6 yard mark, 40% of the yards needed on first down. Now, obviously, most of your first down runs are going to be 1st and 10 situations, right? So, 4 yards, and we've kind of heard over the years Joe Thomas speak to this as well too, especially I think kind of like his final season in the NFL, and then ever since that as an analyst on the outside, they always treated it. When he was with Cleveland as a 4 yard run being a successful run. Okay, so 40% on first down. So that means if it's first and goal at the 4, do the math there. But if you can gain 40% on first down or whatever the yardage is, that's a successful run. On second down, whereas in the past I've used 60% of the yards needed, Chase now has that down to 50%. Okay, so if it's 2nd and 10 and Randy calls the godforsaken run, which he did quite a bit of at 2nd and long this past year, you need 5 yards or more. So 50% is the number on second down. Then obviously on third and fourth down, 100% of yards needed or 6 yards or better. Right, so even though that there is that success rate formula has been slightly tweaked, it's not like it's making a huge dent in the overall numbers. The fact of the matter is and when I boiled it down, and I would like to see. What I need to do is probably go back the last 3 years and just look at successful running back rates overall, ranked league-wide, and then specifically on first down, because this team just has not been able to run on first down whatsoever. And 41.6%, that's miserable. That has set up a lot of those second and long situations.
Yeah, it's abysmal. And we know the Steelers last year at least were among the league leaders in running the ball in 2nd and 10, which naturally led to 3rd and long, which naturally led to a punt. But I would be most interested in the run rates the last 3 years and where that ranked league-wide. That's the number I would really love to know.
Right, and running backs only, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, implied. Yeah, I don't care about Ben's running numbers over that span. But yeah, I mean, they have to run the ball more efficiently, and you hope good health will do that. Maybe some changes in the offensive line will do that. But regardless of the method to get there, it has to be done.
And we'll see. I mean, if they don't, then And if field position ends up being an issue like it was a couple years ago, then you're going to run into a situation where Ben needs to throw for 5,000 yards. Again, and we all hope that doesn't have to happen.
Right. Before I jump to the defense with Rooney, I do want to go to the front office because I think one of the biggest things that he said was a status on Kevin Colbert. Rooney said he was optimistic about getting a deal done with Kevin Colbert for at least another year or two because Colbert's contract currently runs through the 2020 NFL draft, so expiring in a couple months. Colbert in the past, last year, said he wanted to go year by year because still uncertain about his future, obviously getting close to retirement at this point, but Rooney seems pretty optimistic about getting a contract extension done for at least another season.
Yeah, not a surprise there, right? I mean, what we've said all along. I know people out there claiming he's going to Carolina. No, he's not going to Carolina. They'll get something done with him between now and the draft.
Right, yeah. My thought remains the same, that I believe Colbert's here through basically 2021. That's my guess. We'll see if it's true, but I think he's just trying to maximize his Ben window for the next 2 seasons.
I thought Art Rooney, look, Art Rooney's never been shy about being critical, of the team and things that they did and didn't do throughout the season there. And I really think overall he was sincere in the fact that in saying, look, this past season was very hard to judge. 3 quarterbacks, and one of them was just a tryout guy there, and they never were able to find their footing for the most part offensively, and he made sure to highlight that, look, I mean, for this team to still be in a prime spot, and Lord knows they were, with 3 games remaining, a prime spot to make the playoffs. That's a testament to the kind of job that Mike Tomlin and really the rest of the coaching staff did last season. Now, overall, was it frustrating, especially with 3 weeks left? Is it okay to be frustrated the way that things ended and this team ultimately not making the playoffs? Absolutely, there is, especially with the way the defense was playing and the situation that was set up there with three games remaining in the season. But you can tell that Art Rooney has a little bit of sympathy about what all went on and how uncharacteristic of a season it was, and all the injuries with the running backs, and of course Juju missing. What did Juju end up missing? 5 games? I mean, it was
yeah, I think it was 5.
5 games in total there, and you got a bunch of you got a pretty young receiving crew outside of that, running around in there, and the only thing that they had positively, or a positive, or at least it seemed like a positive at the time, was at least the offensive line for the most part was intact all season. Well, I mean, is that good or is that bad? I mean, obviously, Ramon Foster, we expect maybe a change to be made there. But, other than that, that was only kind of the constant that the Steelers had offensively. But just the overall kind of takeaway from Rooney coming out of that is, he was pretty impressed with the job that Tomlin did, and he does admit that it was kind of a hard season to evaluate, especially on the offensive side of the football, due to all the injuries the team had.
Well, Rooney's absolutely right about that, but as you mentioned, if you look at it from a 30,000-foot view, and if you didn't watch the game, if you didn't see how the things unfolded and said, well, you lose Ben 6 quarters into the year and you finish 8-8 with all the injuries and turmoil you had, you'd say, okay, you know what, that's not too bad. But when you're 8-5 and you're right there for the playoffs and things are good and you collapse again, you can't help but be disappointed, and you should be disappointed because
Sure.
you were right there for the second straight year. You're 17-1 last year, missed the playoffs. This year, you're 8-5, you missed the playoffs, and so I think, well, I get what Rooney's saying. Tough year, absolutely. The fact that you were 8-5 and right there again, and you just collapsed in just crazy, crazy style, that is disappointing, regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah, and I think you could hear him kind of in depending on the interview that you listened to there, kind of wonder to himself maybe how things would have been different had they had a healthy Mason.
Mm-hmm.
Really from the point that he came into the game against the Jets and on. How much a difference would that have made, especially against the Ravens? Yeah, who knows? Maybe they beat the Jets, right? I mean, it's possible. I mean, it ended up being a close game, whatever. But would they have been able to have beaten the Ravens? I don't know, because that defense sure looked like it got tired all of a sudden. Of carrying, and that's probably because they had to carry the rope. If you will, for all of the season there. But yeah,
they also saw the Titans score that game. I think they had a little something to do with it.
It's possible, and that'll take the juice out of you. And I'm sure Baltimore wasn't shy about putting that up on the scoreboard, right?
No, they had it in lights the entire game. The players were saying that. I think the players saw the score and knew their season was essentially over, regardless of the outcome of that game.
Right, but if you beat the Jets, then you're not giving a crap about any of that there. But yeah, look, I mean, I've said this right at the end of the season as well. It's okay to be disappointed about the way things ended, especially the shape that this team was in. With 3 games, I really thought they were going to beat the Bills, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I surely thought they were going to beat the Jets. And then, obviously you get what you get when you get to the Ravens there. But was it a pass that he gave them? No, I don't think Rooney gave him a pass. But I think in its totality, I think he said as much as, look, I thought they did a good job to be right there fighting in the end, and that it was disappointing to have things end the way it ended.
See, I kind of felt like it was a pass, a little bit at least, with him saying, I'm just, they fought hard, they were close, and nice job by Tomlin to keep the team together, which credit to Tomlin for keeping the team together. I praise him for that. I'm not going to go back on that, but I did view it a bit of it was just a tough year, and whatever. That's kind of the sentiment I got.
Yeah, but he's not one to give the pass, though,
Well, that's what it sounds like to me in this situation, where he's like, it's just tough to judge this year,
But he did say in a couple of those interviews that it was it was disappointing the way things ended.
Okay, yeah, and that's how I, at least in the short term, remember this year, for the disappointment, for how well this team was positioned to make a run, or at least get in the playoffs. I knew they were not going to win a Super Bowl this year, but and then to fall apart, and in games where they clearly could have won. It's not like they were playing the Chiefs and the 49ers to close out the year. They were playing the Bills, who's a good team, but not it was a close game, and the Jets, a team they certainly could have beaten. So that was a disappointment.
I envision him going on the same roller coaster ride that you and I went on.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
sure.
look, I mean, you get into through week five of the season there, and you're 1-4. What do you think? What do you think he was thinking at that point? As optimistic and as one can be, and think that, well, we've got the guys in place that can maybe overcome this. I mean, that's a death sentence right there at 1-4, and it ended up being anyway.
Right.
I mean, what's the stat even when it comes to 0-3 teams? What is there, like 2 teams? The Chargers and what was it, the Texans or something that have made the playoffs after an 0-3. I forget what the stat is there. Hopefully, never have to go over it again for the near future there. But think about the roller coaster ride that he went on. I mean, then obviously you get things turned around and you're sitting there. What was it? 3 games over 500. at one point, and our tunes even changing on the podcast, at that
Mm-hmm.
point. And look, it even got to the point there with the three, I think with the 3 or 4 games remaining, where I said I think this team's making the playoffs.
Yeah, I did too, and that's why I think he kind of gave it a pass because Rooney was just happy to be off the ride, just off the roller coaster. Say this year's over, it was insane, wildest year ever. I just can't wait for Ben to get back. So that's kind of how I view the statement.
Look, I can only imagine. I think Charlie kind of was testament to this, how tough it had to be
Sure.
Offensively.
Yeah, the toughest year Tomlin's ever had.
Everybody just thinks that you just throw another quarterback in there and away you go. Especially with all the injuries, I think it's exactly okay for Art Rooney to the words that he used, even if it maybe does seem like a pass. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think the way he's kind of framed it is okay because it's just not as easy as people on the outside think it is with all the turmoil, especially on the offensive side of the ball, injuries or whatnot, to try to put that thing together to get a unit that score more. Now, look, I mean, should they have scored more than 10 points in the last 3 games? Yeah. All right. But, I mean, I just don't think it's as easy as people make it out to be.
No, and I understand. I've talked about the difficulty of it, and again, probably the toughest year Tomlin's ever had to have managing the offense side of the football. Probably the toughest year Randy Fichtner's ever had to have as a coach in any capacity. But they were making this thing work. They built it back to 8-5, and then it fell apart again at the end in your most crucial.
They were not they put them. They were trying not to have the quarterback kill them.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm just saying, regardless of what the method was, they got this thing to 8-5. They brought this thing back from the grave, and then it fell apart, and that is a disappointment, and that's how I remember this season.
Sure, but I mean, will you remember any of them getting to that point of 8-5 or 3 games over?
Yeah, I remember that because that's where the disappointment came in because
Right.
they were 8-5, and then they fell apart, and they had it, and they gave it away again.
Look, your goal every year is to make not only make playoffs but to win the Super Bowl. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
They obviously didn't do that, so it's a failure of a season. Plain and simple. But and that's why I've been a little bit more lenient with the whole Randy situation here as well too, because I can only imagine how tough it really was. I think Charlie was a little bit of a testament of this as well too, and we're trying to get Bruce Gradkowski on a future podcast here to give kind of his angle on it as well too. You have your offense installed and all like that, and then then it goes off the rails, and you got your backup guy in there. Okay, well then it goes off the rails again. You got a guy that off the street there. It's not okay, but it's the reality of it. And look, could have if they had a quarterback coach in there, would have made a world of difference. Maybe a little, but
I wouldn't have changed the scope of the season. But
no.
my point is, it was like Keith Butler last year, where the players didn't help Fichtner, and Fichtner didn't help the players. Both were bad, and it's okay to say both are bad.
Oh yeah, I mean you didn't have Juju for a lot. I mean it was a mess, and it's like Rudy says, like something we've never seen before. You know?
But anyway, I know we're just rehashing.
We're splitting
stuff.
hairs, but
yeah, we've talked about it. Anyway, so I want to flip to the defense now, something positive for this team Rooney talking about, and really echoing what Mike Tomlin said. And I imagine really it was probably Rooney going to Tomlin first when Tomlin said it at his press conference to end the season and saying that Bud Dupree's a priority, you better bring Bud back, and Rooney said as much speaking to the media this week, where they want to have Dupree back, and he said, let me pull up the exact quote here, we'd like to have Bud back, no question about it. We will do our best to make it happen. Bud Dupree is going to be a Steeler in 2020. What capacity will that be, a tag versus a long-term deal? I'm not sure. They want to do a long-term deal. Will it work? Who knows? But Dupree is going to be in black and gold in 2020.
Yeah, and once if it wasn't enough of a rubber stamp when Tomlin said after the year, once Rooney says it, go ahead and take it to the bank.
Yeah, well, I think Rooney probably told Tomlin before that press conference at some point along the way, you guys better bring Bud back because we're not letting them get away.
Right, and he made sure to reference that Dupree and Watt are one of the most best tandems right now. In football when it comes to rushing the passers, and how they don't want to break that up right now. I guess you could parse it out in the different interviews that he's given of what that means. I think they're going to do everything in their power. Obviously, maybe to try to get Bud signed long term. Okay, it would be uncharacteristic for them really not to. I don't view them thinking of Bud Dupree as Jason Worlds.
Yeah, no one wants a tag. No one likes a tag. Teams don't like the tag. Players certainly don't like the tag. Everyone wants a long-term deal.
You can kind of go ahead and, when you go back and you look at the Jason World situation with him and that transition tag situation there, that was almost like the 5th-year option with him way back then.
Right.
I was thinking about that the other day, and you could kind of frame it as sort of a 5th-year option. He not only did he not really live up to it, I remember breaking down all of his sacks prior to that. You remember that? I got those on the site somewhere there of how really, the lack of quality of those sacks at Jason Worlds. I think he had, what did he have, 8 or something that year before the transition tag? I don't remember specifically.
That's about right. I can look it up.
But the fact of the matter was not only did Jason Worlds just really not live up to that transition tag amount that year, he up and decided he didn't want to play football anymore on top of it there. So, really kind of makes you wonder there. So, and that's how I kind of look back at that particular tag situation with him. That it's rare to see this team tag a player and then not be able to work out a long-term deal with him. Obviously, they tried with Le'Veon Bell. We all know the story on how that went. So I would think that unless, Bud Dupree's asking price is just over the moon, that they're going to try to get something done with him. But as I've said all along, I expect this whole process to start with the tag. And not that they can't get him signed to a long-term deal before tag deadline, but man, we're talking a matter of weeks here now that they would have to get something done. Not saying that it can't happen, but it's just so unlikely based on history when it comes there. And I think Bud would be smart to force the tag, at least initially anyway, unless he gets an over-the-moon kind of offer there. So, now that Rooney has said it, you might as well go ahead and mark it down. At the very least, he's going to be a member of the Steelers in 2020.
Jason Worlds, 8 sacks in 2013, 7.5 in 2014 before walking away and retiring from the game. And as Rooney said, and it's obvious, the Bell situation will have no impact on the decision to tag Dupree. That was a separate thing, a unique situation, and as it should be. What happened with Bell should not have any sort of influence on your decision-making in tag or not to tag Bud Dupree.
And Bud's already come out and said, look, I don't have any issue with it. I'll sign it.
Yeah, $16 million, even for 1 year, not a bad way to earn a living.
Yeah, you just got to make. I hope they have elevators there so he don't have to climb the stairs or anything to go up and sign that, because I don't want him to hurt. He'll probably hurt himself trying to go up those stairs to sign that tag. But if realistically, how long will it take him to sign that? I don't know. But if I were him, as soon as that tag is issued, I'd advise him to go up there and sign it.
Yeah, so we'll let you know. Well, when is the tag deadline? Do you know the date?
I'll have to look on my calendar here. I'll pull that up here while you talk here.
Okay, just to kind of help put a framework, because I guess we are kind of coming up to the deadline here.
I was sitting. We were, I got a lot of work actually done last couple of nights there, stuff tax related and all like that, and sitting around talking to my wife last night afterwards, and talking about how isn't it amazing how this NFL calendar kind of flows,
Never stops.
From one thing into the other here. Let's see here, just because, look, here we are. We have the East-West Shrine game this weekend, along with the NFL PA Bowl. We obviously had the conference championship games after that. Then Senior Bowl after that, and then we only have then obviously the Super Bowl, and then you get 1 or 2 weeks off there, and that's when I run to Florida for a week there. Then you turn around, then you and I are back covering the combine, and into the new league year we go. First day for clubs to designate franchise or transition players is February 25th.
Okay, and the deadline to tag?
And the deadline for clubs to designate franchise or transition players is March the 10th.
Okay, so March 10th. I know the Steelers generally do it a couple days before. At least I think that's how they handled Bell, was tagging a couple days before the deadline came through. So probably first week of March, probably see the tag on Bud Dupree.
Uh, yeah, and along those same lines, it'd probably be the time deletions happen.
Yeah, right. And that's Foster, potentially Chickalo, Barron. The decision on Vance is when? March 18th?
That
That's the decision?
is, the start
Just
of the new
start
league
the
year
new
is
year.
March 18th, right?
Okay, so that's the deadline for Vance. So about 2 months from now, start really getting some information on the future of a lot of Steelers.
And obviously they can, from this point forward now, I mean, they can work out a long-term deal with Bud, So
Hmm.
I'm not saying that they won't. Let's see. He also talked a little bit about Ryan Shazier, and I'm still not convinced that Shazier's contract won't toll. Because I just think we're kind of in a unknown situation here because normally this stuff doesn't happen. You
Right.
know,
Do we know Rooney's exact words? Because I base that only off of a tweet that paraphrased what Shazier says. Do you have the exact words that Rooney used?
I think he just said he doesn't think that it will.
Okay. Is
But
that
but not
so?
I don't think he came right out and says it's not going to toll.
Yeah, no, I know that. I know that he did not say definitively one way or the other, but I just saw the phrasing was doesn't think. I didn't know if there was a different word choice that Rooney used. If he used doesn't think, then that matches the tweet that I saw.
Yeah, I haven't seen for sure. And
Okay.
most of the questions phrased asked of Rooney that I've seen and heard about Shazier don't even mention the tolling as much as it does what's the plan with Ryan Shazier,
Okay.
and really the answer I think really only the once he was asked maybe in the initial sit down. I mean I don't know for sure, but asked specifically about the tolling situation. I think maybe came out of that initial sit down
Hmm.
there. But most of the phrasing or the questioning along the lines of Shazier since then has been, what do you envision kind of happening with Ryan Shazier? And obviously the answer in every kind of setting is we hope to keep him involved. We have to sit down with Ryan and see which way he wants to go with this, and we're going to decide this in the next couple of weeks, yada yada. And that you would expect that to be the case, and you and I have kind of talked about that. Even if look, Ryan Shazier might make the decision here in a couple of weeks that he's just going to retire. You know,
Hmm. Yeah,
uh,
I don't know what his thought is, but if that contract does not toll, that means he's going to become an unrestricted free agent, correct?
right, right.
So that means that they got to figure something out. And I don't, would it even be possible to just sign him back to a 1 year deal? Could he pass a physical based on NFL standards? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either.
Because I mean, if he could just do that, and he wants to kind of keep being in limbo and rehabbing and see how things go, they could just sign him to a 1 year deal for the vet minimum, place him then on reserve pup, do a split salary thing, and just essentially do the same thing, had the contract told, and that would work the same way if that he could pass a physical.
Yeah, I mean, look, if the legalities of that would allow that to happen from the health standpoint, you know,
I imagine
uh,
legality, like it would just come down to the physical. I mean, could he pass it to the NFL standard?
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you could probably do a minimum salary benefit deal with him,
Right.
and obviously that comes with a reduced cap hit, but I don't know how a split. I'll have to look and see how maybe a split salary situation would work. Maybe even on a contract like that. I'm sure you could stipulate that they have a split salary designation with any contract there.
Hmm.
I would imagine there, but yeah, I mean, look, we're splitting hairs when it comes. Regardless, if he does stay a member of the Steelers in 2020, it would more than likely be on a discounted rate.
Sure. Sure. And yeah, it's possible he does make a decision on his future, whether or not he wants to continue trying to play and come back or not. I have no idea. He has not made mention of it for a while. He's always said that he wants to come back and play, and that's his desire. So I don't know if anything's changed since then or not, but we'll see what the team's approach is. Obviously, they'll work together. They'll come together to the best thing for both sides, and that's ideal.
What else? What else did he say that caught your eye? In one set of questioning, he was asked about the draft, and he said, I don't think we have to zero in one particular position. Yada yada. It's hard to imagine them not going offensive side of the ball, but the process, he says, is not going to change. Obviously, despite them not having a first round draft pick, they'll evaluate players, they'll stack their board, and when it gets their turn to pick, they'll pick the best player that available. So not a surprise there. What else did he say that caught your eye?
The only other thing that caught my eye, at least it's coming to mind right now,
caught your ear.
Is on TJ Watt, and just saying no timetable for a long-term deal done with him. We know if that does happen, it won't happen until later in the summer, and as you said, it may not happen at all this year, but we need to not want to speculate the timing on TJ Watt's contract.
Yeah, and it would go against the grain, especially in this CBA climate that we're in right now, that when it comes to good for them. They're going to be able to beat the system by a year and a half or so, and have a great player outperform his rookie deal there. So TJ just probably going to have to wait a year. I know he's not going to like it, but him and his brother had the Reebok deal, and I'm sure that's probably.
He needs to get some commercials. You think he'd do something with JJ or Juju? Yeah. Like, he should get some commercial opportunities.
Isn't he in one of those with? I thought him and JJ are in one of them or something like that. Reebok related. Well, look, you can even go to the Reebok website, and his picture's up there along with JJ. So he's not a high. He's obviously not as in the public eye as JJ is. But I don't think having that Watt name is going to hurt him the rest of this summer, if you get my drift here.
Yeah. Yeah, you think there'd be a commercial with all three Watts and all the Gronks? Like, come on, ad executives! I'm giving you gold. I'm giving you gold over here.
And maybe something like that's in the works, with there. But look, I don't think he's going to be hurting regardless there, and obviously insurance and that kind of stuff will help protect him this upcoming season on top of it there. I just don't think there's any reason to think, especially if they're going to try to keep Bud and do something long term with Bud there, that would, to me, even kind of likely lessen the probability of Watt getting a new deal there. Just let this thing play out. Obviously, between now and right around draft time, whenever the ability to exercise that fifth-year option of his, they'll do that. But it's just more of a formality than anything, because we know that this time next year is when we'll be talking about Watt getting a new deal.
And a mega deal at that.
Right.
All right, Dave. That was it. I think I had from Rooney. Are we missing anything here? We talked about Hall of Fame stuff and just how happy he was to see Donnie Shell in, but that's all standard fare. Anything else from Rooney that caught your attention?
Just like he expects the Steelers have to play in the Hall of Fame game this year. That's not a surprise at this point. And the whole Hard Knocks thing. Look, he says the team will grin and bear it. Push come to shove, if that's what happens. And look, we're not going to find out anything about that until like June or July. And we'll find out about the international game situation there. Not surprising there either, him saying that the organization has raised their hand several times to play in Mexico, but that just hasn't happened yet. I know the Steelers played the Jaguars in 2020, but haven't the Jaguars kind of become England's team, if you will?
London's team, yeah.
London's team, instead of America's team, London's team. So I kind of would find it surprising if in the next couple of weeks it was announced that the Steelers will play the Jaguars in Mexico, if you will. If the Steelers play an international game at all this season, I would expect it to be in Mexico, but it's kind of hard. Would the Cowboys give up a home game to play? It would be a mega draw in Mexico if the Steelers and the Cowboys played there. But would Jerry Jones give up being able to have that at AT&T Stadium?
Right.
And while we're on the subject here, I wrote a couple weeks ago, or about a week ago, about the possibility of maybe the Steelers and the Cowboys playing on Thanksgiving in 2020. But the further you research that and peel back the layers of the onion, and which network has the Cowboys this year, and I forget what they call that flex, the cross flex situation there, when it comes to the ability to be able to grab another team's, another network's game like that. And I talked to buddy Sam Farmer, who has a better pulse of that. Sam Farmer writes for the LA Times, really has a good pulse on cross flex and networks and things like that. There's like a 0.0008 chance that the Steelers will play the Cowboys on Thanksgiving this year. So you might as well forget about that. And I just can't see, and not saying that it's not possible, but I can't see Jerry Jones giving up a game at AT&T Stadium against the Steelers to have one played in Mexico.
Yeah, I doubt that. I don't know who the other teams could be, but we'll see if it happens.
Well, it wouldn't be a division game, right?
Sure. No, it wouldn't be a division.
All right. You think any of those Buffalo, Tennessee? Let's see. Where do they play Houston this next year? Isn't that in Pittsburgh?
I haven't looked enough at the schedule to tell you that. That could be an option though if it's in Houston.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at the opponents again for, let's see, 2020 opponents here, see who they play on the road. Because look, I think Heinz, don't they have the agreement in Hinesfield that 8 games a season have to be played there in their lease? So I don't see the Steelers giving up a home game to play in Mexico. Here are their road opponents. Are obviously 3 in the division there: Buffalo, Dallas, Jacksonville, the Giants, and the Titans. So you would think of those teams, the likeliest of them playing in Mexico against, I would think, would be the Titans.
Yeah, that's where I would lean to, but I have no idea. I have no idea really if it's a serious thing or not. We'll find out, and will that get announced sometime during the summer too, I guess? Or does that get announced
sooner? Really, in fact, I look back and it's going to be sooner rather than later. I think it's right before here at the end of January is when they announced the last year there was 5 international games, and all those were announced, I think, the week before the Super Bowl there.
Wow. Okay.
And one of those games obviously was in Mexico, the game against the who was it? The Chiefs and the Chargers, was it this past year? They had 4 obviously in London. And 1 in Mexico. I would think that the international series would be 5 games again, more than likely. So I would expect us to know whether or not the Steelers will have an international game here before the Super Bowl. And it just doesn't seem feasible right now.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, Hard Knocks was announced on June 11th last year. So probably first 2 weeks in June, we'll find out. The Steelers have been named the team of Hard Knocks. I'll spoil it for you right now because they're going to be the feature film on HBO this summer. And
the only thing that'll cause you probably have to go to a couple more training camp practices, right?
Well, if they're going to be in the Hall of Fame game, I think that extends training camp. And then for Hard Knocks, I just got some competition for Hard Knocks this year because I got to try to outdo the camera crew.
Let's see, David, have to report a couple of weeks. I think it's 10 days or 15 days earlier if they play in the.
You were telling me what, July 22nd or 23rd?
Yeah. Whatever date that I sent you would be the earliest they could report.
Okay. Well, we'll let you know. We'll find a lot out next couple of months. We're doing a good job previewing this thing now. But I think that's everything for Rooney. Anything else you want to add, Dave?
I'm trying to remember if there was anything else that he said.
I think we've hit on.
Obviously, he said he paced a lot about the decision to trade away the first-round draft pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think he feels a lot better about that now.
Yeah.
At this point here, I mean, really, there wasn't a lot for him to speak on defensively. You know what's most irritating to me is the man does like 10 different interviews this time of year, and the same questions get asked.
Mm-hmm.
Can't they do a better job of asking? I mean, I'm sure, and I wrote down 10 of them myself of things I would, not that it matters at this point, but I would, I would like to ask them a little bit more about, the things offensively and scheme wise and things that you're probably not going to get a good answer to.
Well, I'm just curious. What you wrote them down? Just read off a couple.
I don't have it here. Where is it?
Be curious.
I didn't know we were going to talk about it, but things related to scheme, things related to what what he envisions specifically Matt Canada maybe helping out offensively. Just things off the cuff that things that weren't already asked to him already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it got a little repetitive for a couple interviews for sure.
His thoughts on has anybody asked him how his thoughts on Devin Bush?
Mm-hmm.
That was
I don't think anyone's asking about Devin Bush.
That was one of the things that I jotted down about him as well too. But what I was going to try to do is try to beat some of these guys to the punch and put them out there on Twitter and see if they'd steal my questions just so they get asked.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we still got a good bit of information from Rooney. So some stuff on key areas, the quarterback situation, a little bit on Ben Dupree, reaffirming the priority for Bud Dupree. So I still think we learned a good deal from Rooney.
Here it is. Analytics. Nobody asked about analytics.
Yeah, I'd love to know, especially after losing Kareem Kasem. I would love to know there any shift in analytics.
So we don't hear those kind of things talked about there. Here's the other one, CBA. What's his thoughts on CBA negotiations?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question.
Just because he's at, you can ask him about Shazier and Ben's elbow, but if you watch and listen to 3 or 4 of these, he's even used the same, grin and bear it. He's used grin and bear it when asked about Hard Knocks. Okay, we get it. We've talked about Hard Knocks since the season ended. He doesn't have a definitive answer on that. It's not like they can say no. That's been out there right out of the chute. I just think that here's what I would do with them. I would have Rooney at the end of the year do a 30 or 35-minute press conference. Let everybody in the media come to that thing at one time. Save the man the trouble of doing 10 different interviews and answering the same questions there.
Yeah, well, I know that his initial media scrum is with a large group. I don't know. I guess it's not with everybody, but I think that he does do an interview with a lot of the beat writers.
5 or 6 of them, I think.
Yeah,
and that's been standard fare for several years now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess people just want that exclusive interview just to say they want one-on-one with Rooney. All right, Dave. That's everything on that. I think we can kind of make our picks and then go to some read emails and close out the show.
All right. What is today's date? The 17th here. I was thinking we might have an ad, but we don't. Let's see here. Let's go to MyBookie and look at who do you think is going to win Defensive Player of the Year? Do you think Watt has a prayer, or do you think it's going to be Gilmore, kind of based on things that have happened with the Writers Association and all? Yeah,
I was going to say, I think some of the other publications have had, I think Gilmore and like Chandler Jones as 1 and 2, so that's not a good sign initially for TJ Watt. Obviously, doesn't have to be the same across the board, but my feeling based on that is going to be either Gilmore or Jones, more likely Gilmore.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel the same, unfortunately. I
thought it would come down to Gilmore versus Watt. That was my feeling a couple weeks ago.
And you look back at history and teams that have not made the playoffs, fail to make the playoffs. I think generally those guys don't win, and obviously the Patriots did there. But anyway, looking ahead, what do you think about this weekend's games?
No, they're going to be good. I'm not going to get to see too much of them. I'm going to be wheels up flying out to Mobile. That's the one bad thing about where Mobile lands is I always seem to fly out on Championship Sunday. But, yeah, they're going to be good games. How's Tennessee and Kansas City kind of yin and yang in terms of their offensive approaches. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, we got San Francisco hosting the Green Bay Packers there. Definitely going to be, of the two, this is the one I'm most interested in seeing. 49ers at home, favored by 7.5.
That is a big line for a championship week. Well, my initial Super Bowl prediction before the playoffs was the 49ers and Chiefs winning it. So I'm going to go with the 49ers in this one. I think just a bit more consistent team. I think I trust that pass rush a little bit more. The Packers just seemed a little too volatile for my taste, which means they could have a great game, but I think I trust the team that's more consistent. I trust the 49ers to win.
Do you expect them to cover?
I do.
All right, well, I'm going to go the opposite way, just try to make up a game on you here. So I think the 49ers do win this. I think they're going to be more than fine offensively. We've seen I think the thing that stuck out the most to me about the Packers so far is, man, Aaron Rodgers seems to be sure on the move a lot, right? I mean, that offensive line of his, I think, is a little suspect there, and I think that 49ers pass rush will be able to get after him pretty good in this game. I don't think his outside Devontae Adams. And look, I mean, if they can get Aaron Jones going early, that's what they're going to need to do. I just don't see that happening. So I see San Francisco winning this. I don't know what way I'm going to go with my own personal stuff when it comes to the man, but for your and I purposes, I think San Francisco wins, but I think I'll go with the Packers covering that 7.5 there. How's that?
All right,
Let's see. Kansas City. This is the other game. Kansas City hosting the Tennessee Titans, another 7.5 line, according to my bookie. Can Tennessee hide Ryan Tannehill enough and lean on that ground game enough and really come out and duplicate what they've done in their first couple games, jump on the opposing team and be able to lean on what they want to do more offensively, this time against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs at home laying 7.5. Thoughts?
I'm going to go with Kansas City, again, to keep my Super Bowl prediction intact, but I think the Titans, with their ball control offense, is going to keep the score down. They're going to control the clock, and I think they find a way to cover this one. So I got the Chiefs winning by, let's say, 4.
So you got Titans covering this then?
Yep, I do.
Okay, I'm going the opposite way with this. I think Cinderella loses her pumpkin slipper or whatever.
You're mixing a lot of stories there, but okay.
I think Cinderella finally lets her hair down a little bit too long. No, in all seriousness here, I like what Kansas City. I thought Kansas City showed a lot of moxie in that game against Houston. Not panicking. They made a couple of mistakes, albeit mostly kind of special teams related there early in that game. But once they got in a position where they could do what they wanted to do offensively, they were able to do it. I expect them to be able to do the same against Tennessee. If they jump on Tennessee right away and get them out of what they want to do, which is running the football, I don't think that's going to bode very well for Ryan Tannehill and the receivers in that game there. So I like Kansas City actually to win this one going away. I think this one will be over at the start of the third quarter there. So I'll give me Kansas City late at 7.5 points.
All right, fair enough.
That's it. That's all we got on that. What else do we have for let's see. I guess we should get to a couple emails here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let me find those here. I know we got a couple interesting ones here. This is from Zach Jorgensen on Troy. Love your podcast. Listen to every episode and first-time emailer. Congratulations, Zach. Where you been? I happened to be out of the country when Troy did not come back to the Steelers. Is his frustration with the organization simply that the Steelers didn't give him another contract when he thought he could still play? Was there more to that which added to his discord with the Steelers? I think it's more along the lines of they wouldn't release him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think he was just happy that they wanted to cut him and that they wouldn't, and they wanted to push him in retirement, and just the confliction about Troy wanted to keep his career going, wanted to do that in Pittsburgh. Steelers didn't want to do that.
And he wanted to play for LeBeau over in Tennessee, blah, 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 and they weren't, they didn't help foster that whole situation there.
Right. So that's where the friction came about. Right.
And I'm trying to remember how his final restructure went, if there was a false year kind of added on there to kind of help lower that kind of trapped him, on top of it. I think he kind of felt a little bit deceived maybe by that last restructure that he did there as well too. So look, I think if Troy gets in, even though he's not the huge kind of media guy, if you will, I think all this will be water underneath the bridge, if you will. I think the two will make it work. Will he be probably the happiest camper? Look, he's never liked to be out there in the forefront doing media stuff anyway, right?
Yeah, he's obviously very quiet, very reserved, does not like the spotlight. But yeah, I just hope that, assuming he gets in, I'm very confident that he's going to be a lock to get into the Hall this year. It can be the bridge that repairs this relationship, because you just don't want to have that kind of relationship with one of the greatest players in your franchise's history. We've seen it with Bradshaw. You don't want to go down the same road with Troy.
All right, Jason Campbell writes in, hello, gents. I have what is probably a dumb question, but plenty of others are undeterred by that notion, so full speed ahead. When a play is designed, and more specifically a run play, how much input does the O-line coach have? I felt like there was a disconnect this past season between the play calling and the blocking scheme far too often. These playoffs have shown that good running teams can execute when everyone is expecting a run. Vrabel noticed something about the quarterback getting the line in the right calls. Can we attribute any of the Steelers' failures in the run game to the quarterbacks? I would think that would fall to Pouncey. Thanks. Always love your work. By the way, I wrote to Alex about the Cheaty jersey. I am a framer, and I'd be happy to help get that done for them. There you go, Alex.
No, I missed that tweet. So yeah, reach out again or something, and I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah, Jason Campbell. I think it's Super Nut maybe on the Twitter machine there. But yeah, he's been a long time follower there. So yeah, Alex, you should look into getting that Cheaty jersey framed. About his other question, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's not stupid. I totally understand what you're asking, Jason. And yeah, the offensive line coach has a lot of input, as we just mentioned earlier in the show. I think, Munchak was, and I assume Surratt, carried the torch as being kind of the de facto run game coordinator. The offensive line coach has to really work really closely with the OC, not only in the run game, but also in the pass game too, because, whatever the route, whatever the play call is in the pass game, if it's a 7-step drop, well, you're going to block it up a different way for the offensive line. If it's a 3-step drop, you might block it up. Your sets are going to be different and stuff like that. So those guys have to really work closely. Everyone has to be on the same page, because if the O-line coach doesn't know what the pass call is and what the route tree is and the combinations and the depth the quarterback's going to get, then your tackles can't protect in the right way. So those guys have to really work closely together.
Do you remember Cheaty's first forced fumble?
First? Oh, I don't remember. There was one against Minnesota. I don't know if he forced it or he recovered it. That's one that sticks in my mind, but I don't know if I remember the first one.
What about? I'm trying to go back in my brain here. What about the game against Buffalo to close out the
04 season?
04 season on a punt return by, was it Nate Klibitz?
I remember them making a splash play. Didn't Harrison make a big splash play in that game too?
Didn't Harrison recover that fumble?
Yeah, I think if we were piecing this thing together, I'd have to go back and look at it. It's been a while since I've actually watched a Cheaty Iwoma play, but that does sound roughly right.
And how many fumbles? What do you have? 2 or 3 forced fumbles during his career?
Let's see what the stats say. He has 2 officially, according to Pro Football Reference.
Okay.
85 career tackles.
Ooh, that's a ton for not.
Right. I think he played like one game on defense. I think it was against Jacksonville. One I think where like Rashawn Mathis picked off Maddox to win the game. I think Cheaty had played defense because the secondary just got gutted that game by injuries. But most of it was special teams work.
So what was your main attraction to him again?
The name helped probably initially, an impressionable kid growing up, but I love the guys who do the dirty work. I mean, I love Sean Morey and Clint Creedwell and Patrick Bailey and Rosie Nix and any of those types of specialists. Anyone who does the dirty work, the unappreciated work, but teams took notice. Bill Cowher talked about how teams had the game plan against Cheaty Iwoma. I think I have a newspaper clipping somewhere of him talking about that. So that was a guy that was the definition of a special teams ace, and still with the organization. I want to get blessed those scouts. So that's been really cool to follow that path.
That's what we need to do. We need to get that jersey of yours framed, and I need to find that newspaper clipping and get that cut out and framed.
I'll probably see him at the Senior Bowl. I see him every year I go to the Senior Bowl. I see all the scouts down there, so I'll probably see Cheaty in a couple.
Y'all try doing audio interview with him.
I don't know if he's interested in doing media stuff,
Come
but
on.
I don't know. We'll see. I talked to some of the scouts before, so maybe I can meet up with him this year.
All right, let's see here. Deshaun Campbell writes in. Dave, my question is to you is, why do you make Twitter sound as old as a typewriter? Twitter machine. Also, I like for whenever one of you guys have a chance, can you give me your Steelers dream team offense 11 personnel? Nothing but current and former Steelers. Well, I think let's see, dream team offense. I think left guard would have to be Alan Faneca. Who do
Oh,
you
wait,
want?
wait, did he say I can't choose current Steelers?
I think he says
Oh, I didn't catch the cap.
nothing but current and former Steelers. I mean, why?
Well, what else is there?
Yeah, but current. There's his and is an an, but I'm assuming he just wants us to
Okay.
pull out our dream team 11 personnel. So our guards would obviously be Faneca and DeCastro, right?
Trying to think of other pass guards. Moon Mullins. No, I'd probably go Faneca de Castro.
All right, who would our tackles be?
Tunch. No, John Kolb.
Are you gonna put Tunch at tackle?
No, I said John Kolb. I went Tunch initially. I'm going John Kolb and the other tackle. My guard, I might go Frank Vershon, but I might not. Marvell Smith was really good at his best. I don't know. I got Kolb as one. You give me the other.
Oh, we're talking about right side, right?
I guess, yeah.
Jeez, that's a tough one, isn't it?
I mean, I guess you can take a left tackle and just put him at right tackle in this scenario. We won't get too hyper focused on that.
Boy. Oh wow, that's a tough one. Yeah, give me oh.
Yeah, not a lot of great tackles in Steelers history.
Marcus Gilbert wasn't bad for a stretch there.
Well, you tell me the name. I'll go with whoever you want to pick.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll go with some recency there and go with that one good year, 2 good years that Marcus Gilbert had there.
And then at center, we're going Webby, or do you want to go with a different?
Oh yeah,
you got a lot of good
can't. I
center,
mean, you got Dirt. You got you'd have to go with Webby there.
Okay.
Let's see, tight end. Well, Heath Miller, obviously.
Okay.
Running back. Who you got at running back there? Franco?
Yeah, Franco's hard to go against, but
you
want to go with Bettis?
Le'Veon Bettis. I mean, you're not gonna. I don't think you're gonna go wrong with Le'Veon in his prime. Obviously, Bettis in his prime.
I'm gonna go Franco though. I'm gonna get some '70s guys on here.
Got to get some old school there. So there you go.
But we got to do quarterback and receiver. We haven't done that.
That's true.
So I mean, Ben, you got to have a quarterback in this 11 personnel.
Yeah,
Ben.
I think Ben's an obvious there. I mean, you got to have Antonio Brown in there.
I mean, you have to. I mean, obviously talent-wise, but
I mean, why else? I mean, I know it'd be those 70 guys would help keep him straight in the locker room.
All right. Yeah, that's a fair point. And then 2 receivers. I mean, you got Swan, Stallworth, Hines.
Stallworth, yeah.
Swan, Stallworth. All right.
I don't know where'd you fit Hines. You got to could you fit Hines in?
Well, everyone already thinks I hate Hines a word, so I might as well just keep it going. But all right, there you go. So you got Cole, Faneca, Webby, DeCastro, Gilbert, Heath, Ben, Franco, AB, Swan, and Stallworth. There's your 11 personnel.
All right, Ben writes in, Dave and Alex, happy late holidays to you both. Let's see, glad that the Steelers off season, full swing with the draft profiles are starting to go up on the website. By the way, we got like 20
25, I think, yeah,
20
today.
And plus a couple of contextualizations up there I've thrown up in there already. Let's see, I love watching tape video on the players in the draft, especially potential Pittsburgh selections, but I'm not sure how I can go about getting tape video being just a regular fan and not a media member. Is there access to an all 22 for college players? Ben, we get a lot of that through the kind of the underground trade, if you will, through other draft nicks and whatnot.
Right, but you can just go into YouTube and search players and search games. It's not as robust as it has been in the past. Some sites that were dedicated to cut-ups and stuff have kind of shut down, but if you want to just look at a player, just type in their name, type in versus. You can find some full games out there, so there are ways to do it. Not all 22, but you can use TV tape. That'll give you some information.
Absolutely, and we'll probably get more of that as the offseason starts to progress here. Just put player's name versus, and you'll find stuff that way. Obviously, game recaps that you can get a little bit of idea. Some of these videos are 12, 13 minutes long, especially stuff like ACC stuff and Big Ten stuff. If you got a little bit of money and want to spend a 1 month charge maybe on some Big Ten, go to the Big Ten Network site. They've got every game imaginable. It's not friendly as far as searching, but once you get the hang of how to use all that, you can pull up any game, any Big Ten game. I have found, even go back the last couple of years, I've been able to find by having a month subscription to the Big Ten site there. You go, if you have an ESPN Plus subscription, you can find a couple of games, SEC related games on the ESPN Plus that interface there. And once again, we're lucky enough that we got a couple of friends here that send us some stuff, some all 22 stuff that they get from schools there as well. Hopefully in the near future, pipeline will be a little bit bigger, especially when it comes to all 22 stuff there. Correct, Alex?
Yeah, I hope so. But even if you don't have the access to all 22, there still is tape out there that you can watch for yourself.
Let's see. He has a question about thoughts on Cole Kmet and Chase Claypool from Notre Dame for potential draft selections for the Steelers.
He's just asking about those guys broadly.
Yeah, have you? I've looked very little at I don't think I've looked any at Claypool. I looked very little at Kmet.
Yeah, I haven't really watched either. I know we have a report on Kmet. I think Nick did that, so you can check that out. Claypool will be at the Senior Bowl. I'm probably going to try to get to him before I leave. We will have a Senior Bowl kind of preview for Monday's show. I don't know what we're doing podcast-wise during the week because I know I'll be kind of out of the loop, but we will have something for Monday morning to kind of go through the Senior Bowl stuff, but not a whole lot to note on those guys for you right now. I apologize.
Brett Nile writes in, have been following the podcast. Let's see, discussion of receivers. You favor drafting another Z-type. While I don't hate the idea, my question is, do you look? If we had our druthers, I think they could go either way outside. I don't think they're going to limit themselves to just a Z-type. We've talked about how anyway they like their guys to kind of be position flexible anyway when it comes to wide receivers. He goes on to write, while I don't hate the idea, my question is, do you think it's possible the receiver room is too young? As you're current projecting with Switzer getting cut, Juju would be the most experienced player with only 3 years in the league. Well, 3 years in the league's 3 years in the league. Everyone else would be a rookie or second-year player with the exception of Washington, who would just be starting his third. Well, now he's making exceptions here. What are your thoughts about adding a veteran Jericho Cotchery type? Is there someone out there that might be a fit?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, Holton would be going into a couple years. Not a super young guy. Yeah, it has been a young room, obviously, and that's why they had Daryl Drake to be that fatherly figure, and why Ray Sherman, I think, got the nod as the interim kind of guy. So yeah, I mean, it would be a young room. I mean, could you add a veteran? Maybe. I don't know if I would do that specifically because of it, but yeah, point taken. It is a very young receiver, but as you're saying, David, they're getting more experience. They're a more experienced room, and they are starting to get a little bit older as well.
Right, and here's the thing: when it came to the guys they've added in the past, is because they've had specific kind of holes that they were open. A rookie would come in and fill. Now, last year you had Antonio Brown out the door in March. So that lets you know right away you're going to need something as far as an X receiver goes. And obviously you're going to go into the draft and get you one, but you had to make plans ahead of that. So I think that's why you saw a guy like Moncrief get signed, and for the kind of money that he did. Now, is there kind of a Z-type receiver, an older guy, a guy that you've liked in the past that you could bring in for next to nothing? Because make no mistake about it, you're not going to have a lot of money. What's Marquise Goodwin's contract situation, you know?
I don't know.
I've always liked him, man.
Super fast, yeah, track star. I think he ran in the Olympics or something, too, and he fell out of favor this year in San Francisco. Let's see. His
I have
contract runs.
always liked, and I think he's a good dude too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen some of the stuff he's done off the field. He signed a 3-year extension in March of 2018. His contract runs through 2021, but he may be a cap casualty at some point. I don't know because he has fallen out of favor in San Fran.
What is he set to earn? 3 point. He's gonna. Well, here's one thing that's a draw against him when it comes to the Steelers. He's going to be 30 in 2020. So that's already kind of unless you could get him on a minimum deal, and I would think that even at his age right now, if on a minimum salary benefit deal, there'd be a lot of teams lined up uh, for him for that. He's scheduled to earn almost right at $4 million next year in base salary, and per game roster bonus would put him a little over $4 million next year. Are the 49ers going to be in a position where they're going to want to pay that? Probably not. But he is signed through the 2021 season just the same.
Yeah, I haven't. Again, I have just not thought about any free agency names yet. The only guy I've even thought about a little bit has been Jeff Heath, the safety from Dallas. That's the only name that's even rattled through my mind right now in any sort of serious way. So I'm not much of help right now.
Yeah, so I mean, we're obviously not opposed to a Kotri type guy, but who? I mean, and for how much, right?
Right. Yeah, I just don't have those answers for you right now.
Right. Let's see. He agrees with our O-line assessment except for one question. Would you at least consider keeping Filer at right tackle where he's proven to be at least solid and simply hold a competition for left guard between Banner, Gray, and your likely draft pick? Ugh.
I don't know where Banner got shifted inside.
I don't know where Banner got shifted inside either. Can Banner play guard? Yeah, probably not.
Had Filer not been moved to left guard for that Rams game, I would have been more open to that idea and saying, well, what is the evidence of Filer really playing left guard? But the fact that they did that and the fact that Filer does have a skill set to play at guard tells me that that would be the most logical thing instead of trying to move Banner inside the guard or Gray or whoever else. Let's have a core for it right tackle and Filer left guard.
Yeah, he says, in his honest opinion, tackle is a tougher hole to fill than guard.
Again, I just think Filer has the flexibility. They want to have a core for it, at least have the chance to start. They invested in a 3rd-round pick in him. They want to see what they have with him. That just seems the most logical way because that's what they did against the Rams in season. So you figure with the whole off season, that's still the best way to go about it.
Number 3, in your first analysis of the draft, you seem to be down on the prospects of at tight end and maybe interior line. That seems to be the gist. Not trying to put words in your mouth. I haven't gone deep into interior line at all. Just on the surface with a few guys that names keep popping up there. And look, we're going to know by today, right? A few of these guys declaring for the draft by this afternoon. What position of need for the Steelers has the most exciting prospects? Man, Brett, I'm still way early in this process. What group is the strongest in the draft overall dependent of the Steelers' need? I'm not equipped to answer that yet.
Yeah, I don't know if I am either. I know it's a really good running back class. There's probably be a lot of debates about should they take a running back high or, running backs on their radar. So, I mean, depending on how much you call that a need, I'd say running back is one of the strongest just groups overall in this upcoming draft. So that might be the position to answer you with.
Tight end, I just, I broke down Alex O, did a contextualization on him. I like him. I don't know if I like him first round or second round. Obviously, they don't have a first round pick to be concerned. I don't think he's going first. I haven't found a tight end yet that I'd rubber stamp first round guy. Have you?
I haven't looked enough to really to say that, but I think you're a little pickier with tight ends than I am. I'll say that.
I just have not seen one yet. I mean, I do like Alex. I think Alex O could be in play potentially. Second, third round type of guy. I'm obviously not as high on Moss as most people seem to be. We don't even know. We'll know today if Moss is going to declare there. I like the kid out of Purdue, but more of a flex receiver type. I need to look a little bit more at his blocking. The edge group doesn't look, I don't think, as bad as maybe what some people made it look like. I looked at the kid. out of Penn State yesterday. I like some of the things he does, although I don't view him maybe as a true 3-4 outside linebacker type. I view him more as a defensive end type than I do outside linebacker type. But look at kind of the sack reels on some of these guys. I think the edge group's not bad.
Yeah, I haven't done a deep dive into that. I've looked at Uche from Michigan. I've looked at Anthony Jennings from Bama, who I've talked about for a little while now. I just, that position may get addressed, but it probably won't happen until day 3.
Right. So look, Brett, we're still in the early stages of this. I want to look at a little bit more at the some of those guys on that LSU offensive line. I think
your guy Charles declared.
Yeah, I want to see maybe if that's a kind of guy that. Well, look, I mean, regardless of position, if he's the kind of guy that might be there in the second round, if he's got any kind of position flexibility to him, that's somebody that's going to have my interest, I think.
Well, I think even if he doesn't, given his size, he's probably going to have to move to guard. That's how teams are going to view him. So whether he's ready
like
or not.
6'3" and something, ain't he?
I think he's listed, I believe, at 295. I believe. So he's probably going to end up being a guard at the NFL.
Boy, you look at just go back and watch the national championship game. Really caught my eye with him out on the move. So that's the kind of guy that I want to look a little bit deeper into. And their center's not bad either. I think their center's going to be at the Senior Bowl, isn't he?
They just named like 2 other LSU guys that are going there, so probably I forget all the names. They got a ton of LSU guys going. The Joe Burrow still might end up at the Senior Bowl. That's still apparently possible.
Well, if he goes, probably just going to be for the interviews, I would think.
Yeah, I might pull a Baker Mayfield, but Jim Nagy's still teasing that Burrow may accept the invite.
All right, I want to look a little bit closer at the Oregon kid on the offensive line, but look, we're still scratching the surface when it comes to a lot of this, Brett. So it's hard to make really kind of sweeping positional overviews here at this point. Sean Haggerty writes in, I think we'll find the best value at center guard, and that is definitely a Steelers-like move. However, for hyperbole, Myron and whatnot, have you seen the running back Dylan out of BC? Holy mother of God, he's fast, 250 pounds, has good hands, and is the only way I would draft a running back. I think there are better needs, tight end, offensive line, defensive line, but with our D, Ben coming back, pray he's healthy. If we could run more successfully, thank you, Jedi Master Dave, for teaching me that we could control both sides of the ball. Thoughts? Love the show, Dave. When I first started listening, I thought you sounded like kinfolk of Myron Cope with the way you get all worked up and talk, meant as a big compliment. May the goodies popcorn be with you always, Alex. That is a Star Wars reference. Please, Lord, tell me you know what Star Wars is. I'm worried about you. The exit music is awesome, by the way. That from Sean Haggerty. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thanks. What was the question?
Just about how about the running back Dylan out of BC?
I have not watched him, so I apologize. Can't give you an answer.
I haven't either, and God forbid if I sound like a Southern Myron Cope. God help us all. Mark Chapman pursuing McDaniels as offensive coordinator to replace Tomlin in the future. Thanks. I don't know what that means. Mark Chapman has a second email here. How come Steelers won't pursue Josh McDaniels as OC? Would be valuable playing against the Death Star from the North.
Well, I don't think McDaniels wants to be an OC somewhere else. He wants to be a head coach somewhere. So he wouldn't make a kind of a lateral move like that. And again, Fietner and Ben are tied at the hip, like it or not.
Chris in Connecticut, I admit I can't really judge the intricacies of interior offensive line play. So can you tell me, how well can Matt Filer play the guard position? I know the Steelers moved him there for the Rams game. I'm assuming for his strength to deal with Donald. He seems a very solid right tackle. Would he be an above average left guard? Look, that's one of the big questions here. I'll tell you this. I remember commenting in the past about Filer's play at left guard, especially with him on the move. I think if you go back and watch that Rams games, he did have a couple of problems there, but who wouldn't, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I can't rubber stamp and say he's going to be a great left guard. I think he is a stop. I think he has a potential to be a good stopgap left guard for one season.
Yeah, I think there's potential for more than that. But I mean, Fowler's a guy that's bounced around. He was playing more guard earlier in his Steelers career, then he kind of kicked back out to tackle and played left tackle at Bloomsburg in college. So I think the skill set's there. I thought against the Rams game he did relatively well, and especially with just being able to be settled in the one spot. He's always been bounced around, and that's probably been tough on his development and career. I think he can be a successful left guard.
Tim writes in, double tight end. Can the Steelers please have a double tight end draft? Vance got to go, but Steelers need tight ends badly. I tell you, looking at this the top of this tight end draft class, Alex, and looking at some of the free agents here, I'm really starting to wonder if the Steelers are going to let. I'm really starting to think that they're going to at least exercise that option year on Vance and at least take him on in to the draft and beyond there. Tim goes on to write, whether it's 2 all around, I'm hoping one emerges, or 1 all around and 1 of the receiving variety. Steelers could use an infusion at the position. Might be weak at the top, but don't pick till 49th anyway there. I don't think he could go in with the idea of saying we're going to draft a tight end in the second round, and that's going to be our position, and that's what we're going to do. I don't think he can do that, especially looking at this group from what I've seen so far. Not saying that it won't happen, but I tell you, the more I get into this class, and yeah, maybe I am a little bit more pickier than Alex is. I don't be surprised if Vance is still on this team come March 18th.
Yeah, I think that's still totally possible. I don't want to count him out. But again, even if they decide to pick up the option on Vance, you got to find someone to pair him with, because Vance cannot be anything more than a 500 snap season kind of guy.
And we'll see. We'll find out how much they like Nick Vannett right out of chute too here, right?
They should not like him anything more than the veteran minimum.
All right, Adam Bendis writes in, this will be the last question. Over the last few drafts, there have been a bunch of very athletic safeties who have fallen to the second round. Darnell Savage, Obi Melifonwu, boy, remember the hype?
Savage was a first-round pick.
Yeah, Savage was a first-round guy. Obi Melifonwu, boy, remember the hype on him? What? Mm-hmm. Let's see. I know all the needs on offense dictate other positions of need, but would you try to go after that value in round 2 if you could, with the likely departure of Sean Davis? Also, typically when the Steelers hire a new coach, it seems they draft a player in that position for them. Does the hiring of a new quarterback coach mean a quarterback could be drafted, hopefully not early?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit of a history there in terms of them drafting positions of guys that they hired, but I don't know if that might be correlation and not causation, and also really candidates quote-unquote draft picks or a young Mason Rudolph and Hodges, so he's got some young guys to work with. In terms of the safety, I consider safety a pretty substantial need, one of my top 4 needs that I've looked at. I don't know if the fact that safeties have fallen is a real thing or not. Maybe that's just a coincidence, but yeah, safety depth is going to be really important because there's nothing behind Minka nor Edmonds.
Here's the thing too. When it comes, they usually like to get their obviously not a first round draft pick this year, but like to get those players on the field sooner rather than later, right?
Yeah, I mean that's been the mandate really for any team in the NFL, and since Stephon Tuitt, they basically said we got to get these rookies on the field. They got to make an impact. If you're a first or second round pick, obviously the first round pick this year, but your second round pick historically has been playing a lot of snaps this year.
Can they do that with a safety this year?
Potentially. Yeah, I'm not saying safety even has to be necessarily a second round pick, but third on, all bets are off. But again, if an injury happens to Minka or Edmonds, what's behind them?
Right.
I mean, there's nothing. I mean, you could theoretically move a Sutton or a Hilton or, Dangerfield's done spot starting in the past, but nothing you really feel too confident about or nothing. Or even if you could move a Sutton, then what do you do in dime? Do you have a dime defender still? So you're in a really tough spot there. You got to add somebody to that safety mix.
And look, I mean, outside linebackers as well too. How comfortable are they with what's behind? What we think will end up being Bud and Watt.
Yeah, that's a fair point too. I mean, Ola, they have not played a whole lot. Tuzar's only going off a preseason stardom. Chicolo's likely gone. Yeah, that's a position that they probably will add to at some point, but more likely a late day 3 pick.
All right, some good questions today. Thank you, everybody, for those that had sent them. We probably going to have a little bit of a messed up schedule next week when it comes to the podcast here, because Alex is going to be out of town. Daniel's going to be with him down there in Mobile. Alex and I we're probably going to record a podcast either later tonight or sometime on Saturday to go up. You think next week will be a good week, maybe, Alex, to kind of shift to the 2 podcast mode?
I haven't yet I've been so busy I haven't even thought about it, but yeah, I mean I'd like to have the episode posted on Monday, just so because that's the start of the Senior Bowl.
Okay.
So we could do a Monday Friday thing. I don't know, but yeah, maybe it's time to do 2 a week.
Yeah, here's the thing. Count on this. Count on an episode being up Monday. Probably more than anything, that being an overview of preview of the Senior Bowl, and Alex and I will probably talk about a couple more players we've contextualized or broken down in that show as well too. I'm not so sure we'll have a second show next week, though. We'll kind of leave that up in the air. Maybe I can get Tom on for a segment or kind of a shorter show to talk to him about some people that he's talked to. Maybe get Nick on as well too. Get those guys a little bit of on air practice, being as how you're going to be taking Daniel with you as well too. So kind of leave it up in the air past Monday of what next week's podcast schedule is going to look like, and we'll kind of play it by ear from there. How about that, Alex?
All right, sounds good.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show. All of you guys know. How about some more first-time email? How about from some of our great female listeners that we have out there? Man, we get a lot of great questions from them as well too. The Terrible Podcast at gmail.com. Send us your questions. Let's stack the email machine full of questions for when Alex comes back on after the Senior Bowl here. Maybe some questions about some guys at the Senior Bowl or some things that he observed at the Senior Bowl for Alex to question. Will be a good line of questions here for this next week via email as well too. As always, if you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, look, it helps us out tremendously when we get the donations. We do not take those lightly. We appreciate everybody that donates to the site. If you can, it's great if you can set up some sort of monthly donation on PayPal as well too. Go to Steelers Depot, hit the donate button up right in the navigational bar. That'll take you to PayPal. We certainly could use the support that way. Additionally, if you would like an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free button up right in the navigational bar. And for $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. It helps you. It helps us at the same time there. Alex, I'll be talking to you, I'm sure, on this podcast machine here later on tonight. But have a safe trip, and look forward to reading your stuff there down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.